Now, ICE has been quietly buying warehouses around the country.
Neighbors go missing.
Close to 75,000 people arrested by ICE had no criminal record.
People go in,
sleeping on the floor, little to no food.
And profit comes out.
Core Civic and Geo Group are cashing in on mass deportations.
But we can stop it before it starts.
GTFO ICE. It's a nationwide rapid response network to stop ICE prison camps.
We know the playbook.
Rumors of an ICE detention facility are being met with some big pushback.
Public debate erupted over the proposed facility.
So we built the network.
Let's use this data to alert Americans about these facilities, to crowd cancel them.
To show up.
Hundreds of people pouring out of the surprise city council meeting.
To shut it down.
ICE Detention Center has been scrapped.
And to say,
to ICE, get the out.
Yeah, buddy. Welcome to the second national call for GTFO ICE. If this is your first time hanging out with us, GTFO ICE was created to oppose and block the creation of Trump's prison camps across the country. This effort was created by Defiance.org. I'm Xander Schultz, co-founder of Defiance.org, along with Miles Taylor, along with our partners, the Save America Movement and Project Saltbox. And what is GTFO ICE? It does two things. It's a very simple campaign. First and foremost is an early warning detection system. So if you sign up at gtfoice.org, enter your zip code, we will alert you if there is plans for a prison camp in your area, and we will give you both a playbook on how to stop it and connect you to the local community organizing effort that's working to stop it. We created this because we learned, and we're going to meet with Michael Wriston here from Project Saltbox in a moment, we learned the earlier that you know about the creation of a prison camp, the more interventions that you can have in your toolbox, the more things you can do to stop it, starting at stopping the sale of the warehouse to begin with. And we've seen a number of successes just on that intervention before the warehouse is even sold to the government. So that is first and foremost what GTFO ICE does. The second thing, though, we do is right here. Every few weeks, we host one of these national calls where we talk to the network writ large. We talk to everyone involved. We talk to, all of the followers of our coalition members and the signers of GTFO ICE, and go over something that we can do together to take action to stop these prison camps from forming. So helping lead that conversation today is the aforementioned Michael Wriston from Project Saltbox, our partner here. Michael, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. How are you, Xander?
I'm doing good. I've got a 5 p.m. coffee going. It's been a strong Monday.
No, I'm right there with you. Just left mine downstairs. This is me, very caffeinated.
No rest for the wicked.
Yeah.
Well, man, I'm sure you're caffeinated because you guys have been doing awesome work. You've spent months tracking the real estate behind the detention expansions, the warehouses, the contracts, the money. And before we dive into specifically the action you have for us, I want to get a little bit of the lay of the land. How many facilities are we talking about at this point? And how much has the federal government actually spent up into this point?
Yeah, so we're talking about, back in December, Washington Post broke a big story, something like 25 warehouses that were on ICE's short list for purchase. And right now, 11 of those have sold. 11 of those are now owned by the federal government to the tune of about $1 billion that they've spent. And that's money that has been apportioned to them out of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So that was, all those warehouses were purchased cash money, full outright ownership by the federal government. But one of the things that's really important to keep in mind is, 11 have been bought. There are 13 that have been full canceled by communities organizing, rallying together and applying pressure to the government, to their local government, as well as, the owners of these facilities, whether they're here in the United States or in places like Canada. That fiscal pressure has caused a lot of those potential sellers to back out of the deal and say, no, we're not gonna sell these to the government. So 11 bought, but 13 canceled. Those are pretty good. I like those scores.
Yeah. Well, you put an emphasis on outright ownership. Is that odd behavior?
Yeah.
Do you not usually see that type of behavior from governments?
No, you usually do. I mean, so in this, ICE is a kind of a weird, they're kind of a weird organization, but one of the things that they're doing that is wholesale wrong. I mean, if we're going to be completely flat out blunt about it, generally when the government seeks to own a warehouse, or not even a warehouse, any private property, if they're going to buy an office park, if they're going to buy a parking garage, or if they're going to build, like a new operations center for a law enforcement agency, anytime that there's a ownership action by the federal government, it's supposed to go through a very rigorous process of due diligence between the federal government and state and local governments. There's supposed to be community input. The General Services Administration, sort of the government arm that handles all things logistics, whether it's transportation or building ownership. There's all these players that are supposed to be involved. And from the get-go, starting in January with the first sale in Williamsport, Maryland, none of those players were in the room. The purchase happened without even the local governments knowing about it, and it potentially violated. I say potentially because there's some lawsuits in effect right now. 6 municipalities and states have filed suit alleging that the government didn't follow their own laws, their own playbook for how they're supposed to purchase property. So it's odd that they went so quickly to purchase these, but it's not odd that the government owns buildings. They just did it the wrong way.
That makes a ton of sense. And it also makes sense why these bureaucratic interventions that we're advocating for communities to take are so effective, because these steps have been ignored in this process to hurry up and build a concentration camp network here in this country.
Yeah.
Is ICE still focused on warehouses, or are we seeing a pivot? I know there was kind of a lull for a minute. Now we have a new DHS secretary. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, so there's been some interesting developments on that front. And what I'll say right now is we saw the last warehouse in Salt Lake City, Utah, actually was the last warehouse to sell to ICE, was in March. And that happened within just a couple of days of then Secretary Noem, receiving the notification that she was no longer going to be the Secretary of Homeland Security. And in those intervening weeks from March to April, as Secretary Mullen came in and took the reins of the agency and began conducting some top-down audits, there was reporting from within ICE and from across the mainstream media basically saying that there was going to be a tactical pause where ICE was going to review its purchasing plan, whether or not it was going to continue purchasing warehouses. Concurrent with that, there's a Office of the Inspector General investigation into how ICE purchased warehouses that is ongoing. And essentially, Secretary Mullen gave a notification that they were going to take a reset and they were going to give a hard look at these warehouses and determine if they were going to continue with it. And just recently, a reporter with the Washington Post, Doug McMillan, did a really comprehensive piece that they shared with us. And the finding is essentially that they've sunk, like I said, $1.07 billion into purchasing these warehouses. And their decision now is that they are going to continue moving forward with retrofitting those facilities, but they're going to do it a little slower, perhaps, than they had originally anticipated. And they are now forced, in some cases, to come back to the drawing board and do it in accordance with those laws that I mentioned earlier, the APA, the Procedural Act, the National Environmental Policy Act, as well as a couple of others that require them to do environmental due diligence, that require them to do historical due diligence, coordination with tribal nations and interested community parties to make sure that they're building, I hate to say this, they're building these in accordance with the law. Take that for what you will. But that doesn't mean that that's their only option for building detention centers. And I think that they, if I'm speculating just a little bit here, I think that they've seen that the warehouses are going to be a problem and they're going to be slow. What we've learned looking into the federal contracting records and looking at public records, things that are available in FOIA libraries, as well as on their contracting pages, and things that we've been told from sources that are very close to the matter, they're pivoting and adding to their detention network by looking at facilities that they can build, what they're calling greenfield construction sites in southern states that are a little more hospitable to their policies and how they're conducting themselves. And they want to build brand new facilities from the ground up on existing land that doesn't have anything on it. And that their thinking there, right, is that if they can do that, if they can purchase this land and they can build on top of it, they can do it in a way that kind of sidesteps a lot of the problems that they've been having with the warehouses. They can build them to specification. They can ensure that they have adequate plumbing. And while all of those are good in the sense that, if human beings are going to be held in a detention site, obviously it should be built with human, considerations in mind. But again, we look at the scale and the pace at which they're doing this. They've got $38 billion to spend on detention, and they're going to do this very quickly. So what that means for communities, for folks that live in areas that could be impacted by these new constructions, is that it's going to be much harder for them to see what's coming, as opposed to the warehouses, which were a little more public facing, right? That's private property that's being sold to the government. A lot of that contracting work is being done out in the open. That is becoming less so as time goes on. But for land that's already owned by government agencies, to do a transfer from one agency to another is a very opaque process. That's not going to look anything like it did with the warehouses. And then to do new construction on top of that is going to take a very concerted effort of paying attention to contracting vehicles, paying attention to public records on sam.gov or USA Spending, getting all the way down to like the apportionment level to see how much money the White House is authorizing them to spend month over month. Will be all indicators that something is coming, but it's going to be a lot trickier than the warehouse fight.
Say what you will about the Trump administration. They are nothing but experimental and pivot quickly. Like they wield the federal government like no administration before them. A lot of it because they're ignoring processes, as you mentioned earlier. But I think a big reason why we started GTFO ICE is to build something that can be as nimble as they are, to try to stay a step ahead of them, and then figure out which interventions are working, stay in touch with all of the local efforts and local fights so we can crowdsource from them what's working. And in these new, like you said, there's new fights coming that are different from the last ones. We are going to have to be as experimental as them across this country. We're going to have to be all hands on deck to intervene in these various fights. And I want to get to a tool in the toolkit when it comes to staying a step ahead of these folks. There's specific documents that people can request, public records on facilities in their own communities. And I wanted to ask, before I get into this crowdsourcing campaign that you all are launching, what is in these documents? What are these documents, and why are they so important to staying a step ahead of ICE?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be asking folks to do, and that'll lead into, I think, very much what these documents are.
Okay.
So from the get-go, I think Project Solbox has been we've been doing very baseline journalistic things, which is, we seek out sources, we talk to folks, people give us information, we vet that information, we go to the government, we ask them for information, and at the same time, we're trying to corroborate all of that against what's in the public record. And so often, what's in the public record isn't necessarily very easily public, or at least the public doesn't know how to access it.
Right.
And so one of this initiative that we're sort of kicking off right now is this Know Your Rights campaign. Obviously, when we're talking about immigration, there are the Know Your Constitutional Rights. But we also want folks that are out there that are interested and have the time and have the talent to also know that they have rights to access public records that are what we would call responsive records in the government world, that are essentially just those documents that are created in the course of the the administration doing its business, that are accessible and requestable under the Freedom of Information Act at the federal level, or under sunshine laws or private or Public Information Act laws at the state level. And so what we're asking folks to do is, we put out an article earlier today with some very basic steps on how you things you can do to submit a Public Information Act request to your state government, or submit a FOIA request to get documents from ICE. And the kinds of things we're asking you to look for are, they might seem very mundane, but the kinds of documents you can request are emails. Between the months of January and March, my county council, how often were they in touch with ICE, and what were the contents of those emails? And you can request that. You can ask for it. Here in a little bit, we'll jump through and we'll go into some more specific tips that you can take, and I'll reference back to the article we put out today. But the gist of the FOIA law is essentially, if it is a document that is created by the federal government for the purpose of doing its business, specifically the executive branch, with the exception of 9 sort of overarching exceptions, which kind of fall along the lines of like personal identity protection, PII protection for employees of the government, classified information, military secrets, and law enforcement secrets. You can request it, you can ask for it, and the government is entitled or is obligated to give it to you, so long as it doesn't match those 9 exceptions. So here as we walk through this, those are the kind of documents to keep in mind. And so you can get real creative with it. Like you said, this administration is very creative with how they pivot and kind of do things. And so we've got to be the same. And we'll talk more about that in a bit.
And when you say, anyone can file these requests, do you really mean anyone? Any citizen can file these?
Literally
and get
anyone.
Information as granular as private emails or private from public officials, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's give an example of that, of anyone. So you don't need press credentials. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to be in any way affiliated with any sort of organization. You can be a average citizen, that is just, you want to know what your government is doing, and you're entitled to know what your government is doing in your name. The process to get that information is obviously not as easy as sending an email over to the FOIA office and saying, hey, can you send me those documents? But anyone can do it. And so as an example, right, when we were investigating the Washington County Williamsport detention center that they were building there, it was average, ordinary folks there in Hagerstown and in Washington County that were submitting FOIA requests, or in this case, Maryland Public Information Act requests to the county saying, can you turn over emails between you and ICE so that we can determine a timeline of when you began coordination with them? Can you turn over documents that show whether or not you were planning on facilitating utilities to that location? And so there's a way that you request those. There's a language that you use, but it's as simple as just saying, I want the government to turn over any and all documents related to utilities between my county council and the federal government between this time frame. And once they're released, generally speaking, they are released into a FOIA library that anyone can then access. So it's not not like they just hand it over to you. It's then public. I mean, public.
Interesting. So, and that's what you were mentioning earlier, that hypothetically, all of this is public information, but there are hurdles that someone has to jump over before it's in a database, like you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And you and I were talking earlier about this, and you said there was something important for folks to do before they even write these requests. What is that?
Yeah, so essentially don't duplicate efforts and don't recreate the wheel. Generally speaking, if you've thought of it, so have other people, and they've probably already requested it as well. And so you don't want to duplicate efforts. Reason being, obviously, if something's already been released, the government is going to take its time releasing documents. And if they've already released it and you request it, they're entitled to about 20 to 30 days before they even have to respond to you to say what their decision is on whether or not they're going to action that request. And in some cases, it's taken us 70, 75 days to get a document released to us. So it takes a while. So before you do anything, do a quick Google search. It's as simple as going into Google and typing in ICE FOIA library. And in the article we posted today, all the way down at the bottom, there's a resources section that has a link to it. But if you just Google it, it'll come up, and you can go through and read all these other documents that folks have, like from the ACLU or immigration lawyers or government watchdog groups. Citizens just like you, right, have requested and ICE has released, and they'll exist in that FOIA library. So you can go and see what's already been released. You can go through and read through all of that and make sure that you're not requesting something that's already public. So
are you saying if you request something, sorry to cut you off, but are you saying if they request something that's already public, it could be pulled back into that 30-day cycle? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they are responding to your request. They are responding to your request and how you worded it. And so they will take 30 days to respond to you to say, oh, that's already been released. Or, the way you worded it is too broad. It's a different kind of request than what someone else has already requested. So just save yourself the heartache and go check and see if it's already been released. And you'll find some really interesting stuff in there. Like you'll find detention center inspection reports. So they just released the most recent one for Delaney Hall. You can go through and read what's been going on in Delaney Hall and see it directly from how the government's tracking it. Lots of information is already out there. So before you submit anything, check that.
You answered Songbird's mom's in our chat saying, are they obligated to respond in a certain amount of time? You beat her to it, but it is a good question. Thank you for that question. All right. So let's get into making the request. You make a specific case that people who live near a facility are better positioned to file than a national news outlet or a group like Project Saltbox. Why is that?
Well, let's look at Project Saltbox for a second. We're
Yep.
3 to 4 people, depending on the time of month or the time of year, right? We've got folks that are all over the place, and we are focusing on detention centers all over the country, and so we are stretched thin. We're doing our best with the tools that we have, but we've run into some roadblocks, and the biggest one is a legal roadblock. So anyone in the United States obviously can make a records request from the federal government, but when you're asking for records from the state government, in 5 states in particular, we're talking Alabama, Arkansas, Delaware, Tennessee, and Virginia. The wording of those laws are such that I, a Maryland resident, can't file a public record request to those states because I don't live there. So a national outlet or someone like us that's not headquartered in one of those 5 states can't submit. We're dependent on organizations or individuals in that state or in those states to request them. So that's one roadblock. The second roadblock is that most of those records are very specific to localities and how those localities function. And who better to request those than people that live close to those facilities and understand the dynamics, the politics, how the government there at that local level works. A local resident knows much better than we would who to ask, what to ask, how to frame those requests, just by virtue of where you live and being hyper local. So this gets to that hyper local mobilization, so to speak, of getting active at the local level. And I'll say one other thing on that point, right? Recently, we requested some records from California, and we asked for a fee waiver. We'll get into fee waivers in a bit. But we said, hey, look, we're a nonprofit, all volunteer organization. We don't have a budget to afford large-scale FOIA requests. Can we request a fee waiver? And California very politely responded back and said, by state law, we cannot grant a fee waiver. You have to pay for the records that we're going to provide you, unless you're a California resident and live in the state of California, at which point you can just go over to a FOIA reading room or their Public Records Act reading room and actually view those records in person for free on a government terminal, and in some cases make copies of them or take photographs of them or take notes on them. And so there is a logistics benefit to that front too. If you live in a state that doesn't allow for those exceptions, you're in a better position to request them than we would be.
Right. So there's both there's hurdles sometimes on if you even can get these documents. Just to say this back to you, make sure I understand. In some states, you can't get these documents because you're simply out of state, so you don't have FOIA rights. Yeah. In other cases, there is you might be able to get them, but there is a payment hurdle that locals don't have to face in the same way, and hence the value of crowdsourcing this information.
Yes, this is where it is a true concerted effort across the nation. And to preempt the next question, which I know is coming, is, well, what do we want people to do with any of that information that we find?
You got it.
Yeah, right. Is let's consolidate it. Let's send it in. Let's if you email it to us, if we can free up the records request piece, and you send us what you're finding. If you're doing requests and you're asking for, I want to see permits for a specific location that we suspect is going to be turned into an ICE jail. So we want to see, dear FOIA officer, please provide any and all communications, whether written or emailed or, anything between the city of, let's say, Elk Ridge, Maryland, for example, and the Department of Homeland Security. If you get those documents and they show something that is of concern or could indicate that an ICE facility is coming, send it to us, and we'll add that information to our tracker, that nationwide tracker that sends the alerts out, and then we'll continue to follow that and make sure that attention continues to get paid to it. And you can send that information to us anonymously. You don't have to put your name on it. You don't have to, if you want credit, absolutely, we will say, hey, this information was provided by so and so in XYZ state. But if you want to remain anonymous, you can remain anonymous, and you can say, I don't put my name on this. I'm just giving you these records, and there's nothing illegal about sharing it. So don't feel like you have to you're walking on eggshells by sending us something you got from a FOIA request. Once it's released to the public, it is, again, public record, public document. So send it
when
in.
you say send that information to us, just so, because I want to make sure everyone knows exactly where to send this. Where can they send it?
Yeah, you can send it to Project Saltbox at pm.me. That's proton.me. So either one of those works. Project Saltbox at pm.me. You can also send it to me via Signal directly. My Signal name, which is also in the article we posted earlier and is on the Project Saltbox site, it's just my name, Michael.7395 on Signal. And you can send it to me anonymously there as well.
Right on. And so, gang, smash the heart button if you're going to get involved in this. It's an all hands on deck challenge. Michael, can you just lay out real quickly, like what becomes possible if we get people all across this nation to start sending you these documents? They'll follow your guidance here, start sending you the documents you're requesting. What becomes possible for you now that's not currently possible?
Yeah, awareness and more fine-grained awareness than we've ever had. So much of the information that we rely on is coming from anonymous tips, or it's coming from word of mouth. I heard that somebody's planning on doing a thing. If you can request documents that are concrete, that demonstrate that there is coordination at the federal, at the state, or some mixture of the two level, that they are planning to do something or they are intending to do something regarding building an ICE facility or building a warehouse or whatever the case may be, then that is concrete proof that you can take to the media. You can bring it to us and we'll update the tracker. But it also gives Congress the ability to question the administration on what they're doing. And Congress has a lot going on, and as we found talking to congressional aides and legislative teams, they don't always have the same resources that we think they have to request this information. There's no secret room that they go into and pull up a screen and say, show me everything ICE is doing.
Right.
Most of the time, they have to go through very specific processes to request that information as well. So if you can find it and you can pull it out and we can track it and we can report on it, and you are kind of on the front line doing that work, not only does that help us understand what ICE is doing, but that in turn drives what our Congress is able to do and what information is able to come to light from them. A great example of this is the ACLU. The national branch of the ACLU has been staying on top of ICE for its intention to turn on existing federal facilities in other states that don't have warehouses. We're thinking California here. And by requesting FOIA records, they've been able to unearth 8 and get communities activated over the last year to protest those 8 facilities. Now, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but early awareness is one of the biggest make or break factors for whether these facilities get stopped. And if they don't get stopped, then can we at least hold them to the letter of the law, that they ensure that, clean water, access to lawyers, access to communication, all of those things are in place, because sometimes that's the best we can do. And even though that stinks and we hate it, and we would hope that these facilities just don't exist in the first place, pressure at the public level is the thing that makes or breaks whether these facilities go undetected and under the radar. So yeah, that's the ask.
Are you saying Trump is lying when he says he has the most transparent administration in history? That's not a fact.
I think that I will be very transparent and say that I believe that's completely false.
Okay.
I think that's completely false.
Well, Michael Wriston at Project Saltbox, thank you for doing this. Look, we're all about collective action here. This is an exciting collective action. We can crowdsource these documents for you all, and as you mentioned, then drive more collective action. But also, you're constantly being asked to come and advise and consult with congressional members. We can get access in Congress where it's often needed as well, and getting good information there as well. So thank you for everyone that's participating in this. I just dropped the link again, the How to FOIA link in the chat. That links to Project Saltbox. Is an important effort and article here. Michael Wriston, thank you so much for joining us on this call, buddy.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right, gang. That's it. These calls are short and sweet. Our action, be part of this effort to get documents, get information into Project Saltbox's hand from across the country. You have the power to request these articles, more so than Defiance as an organization, more so than Project Saltbox as an organization. We really need your help in this. So please, if you can, participate in this effort and keep coming to these things, gang. We're going to try to do one of these every 2 weeks. On top of alerting locals when a prison camp is popping up in their area. If you haven't already, I hope you have, but if you haven't already, go to gtfoice.org and make sure you sign up so you are alerted early when a prison camp is planned in your area, and be part of the effort to stop it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this. It's a late session for Defiance. I'm going to finish my coffee. You all have a wonderful evening, and if you're a Defiance member, I'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everyone.